Hold on for a second. What's up, YouTube family? I would like you guys to make sure you like and subscribe to our video. It would help us get into the algorithms so we can be seen and bring more engaging content to you guys. So like I said, like and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Appreciate you. And welcome to another edition of the Pick and Downs podcast. I am your host, per usual, Sean Tyson, here with Zhu and People. How you guys doing?
Oh, man, just an absolutely depressing weekend as a Bears fan. Beautiful news today with the firing of Shane Waldron. I'll be getting into that later on in the podcast, I'm sure. Tough fantasy week, man. I'm sure you guys saw this, man, but just all these weird guys popping off. MVS with 2 touchdowns for the Saints. I mean, just absolutely abysmal performances from some big names, but snuck out a win in the home league, man. Still top of the charts, opposite of Zhu. Just absolutely beautiful.
Yeah, for me, not going to lie. This is, in my career, the worst week of fantasy football in my career. I got a donut. 0 wins, 5 losses. 0 wins, 5 losses. Monday night, had a couple of hopefuls. Those Dolphins failed me, man. Those Dolphins absolutely failed me. Couldn't get it done in multiple leagues. Devon A-Chain let me down. Tyreek Hill let me down. Like, these Dolphin boys, they aren't the Dolphin boys I expected, man. Jesus Christ, this week was absolutely – it started off real depressing, playing against Jamar Chase and Lamar Jackson, and ended real depressing watching the Dolphins fail me. So, this week of football, I'm just like, gotta take it a chin and move on. But man, woo, it hurts, man. It hurts. Like, oh my love for football is like, oh, it hit me in the gut, man. I'm just watching these games. I'm like, ah.
Yeah.
Oh, it's infuriating right now. It is absolutely infuriating watching some of these guys play.
Just a lot of big names just haven't been doing much. I mean, it was good to see CMC back. Good to see CMC.
Yeah.
Looked better than I actually thought he would. I mean,
full workload. Dude,
full workload, yeah. I feel like his usage volume may not have been to the level that we are used to, but Brock Purdy just carried, man. Him and Jawan Jennings, George Kittle.
Yep.
Didn't even really get to see too much Debo. He did have some big plays, but just a very typical Shanahan team effort win right there, man. Even with the Jake Moody missed 3 field goals.
Fading the 49ers kicker.
And then Debo tried to get
punch the lawn.
Do your job. Do your job.
Yeah.
Now, apparently, they're saying he had an ankle, which is, to me,
hit an injury.
If that's the case, then Kyle Shanahan, what are we doing? Like, you can't find a guy off the street to get you, especially if you're going to kick 6 field goals or attempt 6 field goals. Like, you got to get a guy off the street. Why are you, a guy that's the kicker, you're giving him the opportunity to kick with a sprained ankle? Like, what are we doing?
I think Cody Parkey is looking for a job, man.
Like, I don't know. I thought that was weird. And the 49ers definitely needed that win, because if they would have went to 4-5, the season might have went off the rails a little bit. Like I said, they usually are pretty good. I saw a stat that they're really good after the bye, but with how the NFC West is looking, like, they couldn't afford to be losing games like that. So shout out to Kyle Shanahan for getting his guys, ready and get ready to get into the meat and potatoes of the season. I would say kind of on the back 9. And, I was pretty interested because I was just going through the standings and looking at different teams. And, for example, we're going to be talking about the Pittsburgh Steelers right now. And I didn't even notice they hadn't played a division game, which I think is very odd. Like, they're 9 games in the season or 10 games in the season, haven't played a division game. So, like we've always said, when we went through our previews, we're like, look, man, you just can never count out the Steelers. They're always going to be there. They're always going to be a team. Even if they're around 500 or a game under 500 around this time, they're going to make the games ugly and they're going to figure out how to win. So I was kind of thinking to myself, wanted to start off like dealing with that part of the division. The Ravens are right there as well. If you had to have it, like you got one team, you can go take it to the betting shop, whatever, and say, like, look, I'm placing a bet on this team to win the division, starting with the Ravens or Steelers. Who is your pick? And P. Wish, I'm going to start with you.
Man, tough. This is tough because, let's be honest, man, Russ is cooking.
Oh, he is. Dude,
he is cooking.
Dude, his deep ball is nice.
Dude, he's always had a good deep ball,
It's still nice. He's great at the deep ball.
And you know what? He can't even see over his own line, so he just lofts it up there, man. And then just happens to drop in. To be fair, that catch by Mike Williams down the sideline over the shoulder, just opposite way, was beautiful. I think they really needed to add a player like that opposite of George Pickens. There's only so much Calvin Austin, Van Jefferson that you can be dealing with on the outside. So not that Mike Williams is the 2021 version we saw of him with Herbert, 1,000+ yards, 10 touchdowns, whatever he had, but it's viable, and you have to respect his deep ball threat. And to your point, Zoo, Russ is cooking, man. He's cooking on that deep ball. And I think people are forgetting they still have Najee Harris. I mean, Najee's he's bounced back. He's had some bum years, but he's still a viable running back. Jalen Warren's finally healthy as well, and we already know what's on the opposite side of that defense. I think what it comes down to for me is this just kind of a fluke? Can Russell keep it going? To your point, Sean, they still have 6 divisional games. I mean, and all 6 are dogfights. I mean, the Browns always give everybody hell, especially with Jameis there. They could mess around with some teams, right? You look at the Bengals, the most slighted team for sure this year, just can't seem to get it all going. They, have times where they have T. Higgins on the field and then they don't. Obviously, they've dealt with the Zach Moss IR, but Chase Brown is the better back. Their defense is porous beyond belief. And then we already know, and your comparison to the Ravens, right? So, and I think I don't even think the Ravens have played as many. It looks like, or they've played 3 out of their 6 total division games. But they have some difficult matchups. I mean, besides the 2 Steelers games, they have the Chargers, they got the Eagles, who I know we're going to talk about later. They play the Texans as well, who have been shaky a little bit as of late, but they're getting Nico Collins back next week is the news I'm hearing. So, I think for me, it's coming down to the bye week. The Ravens still have their bye week, and it's a late one this year. I think it's the second week in December. Maybe I think it's the week of the 8th, the games that would be played that day. That's huge for Derrick Henry, because he is not the spry young chicken that we have seen in Tennessee over the years. This guy's getting up there in age. Yes, he is an absolute tank and is the overall RB1 this year. But talk about a timely bye week heading into the final stretch, maybe a stretch that they didn't think was going to be as close of a divisional matchup with this, maybe the Bengals, but not the Steelers. I think that's timely. It's going to help Lamar too. We know Lamar sometimes takes a little bit of time off there towards the end of seasons. But I'm going to bet on the Ravens, man. I think you can't bet against Lamar in the regular season. Say what you will about him in the playoffs. That's fine. We're talking about who's taking the division here. And yes, the Steelers defense is very good, but we've seen running backs be able to take advantage of it. Partially, Austin Eckler this past week had 2 touchdowns, especially in the red zone. That's Derrick Henry's bread and butter, man. He is the king for a reason of that position. So, I think the head-to-head matchups, the 2 games are obviously crucial. They do play this week. I think it's at Pittsburgh. If the Ravens keep this game, I think that solidifies their division crown. But, I mean, it's always up in the air. But I just think that winning on the road in Pittsburgh against a team that is so hot, taking down the Commanders this past week, I think that would just solidify the Ravens. So I'm going to go with Lamar. Can't bet against him this year.
Yes. Like watching this Ravens team, it's kind of funny because usually you think of the Ravens, you think of defense and a rush or like a running game. That's their style. They got 0 defense now. This is a defense. That secondary is one of the most is the most embarrassing atrocities I've ever seen. Like they just cannot tackle anyone, and it's just fundamental football. You get you tackle him. No. You didn't watch him go by missing tackles and everything. So Lamar Jackson's put in a situation where, okay, I gotta get buckets. I gotta get points on the board. And obviously the upgrade from the Gus Bus to the King Henry, substantial upgrade. Like everybody knows this rushing attack's historically been good. But when you put King Henry in there, this dude got 1,100 yards and 12 touchdowns. And it's only been
10 games.
It's only been 10 games. That's absurd. Insane. Like he might get 2,000.
He could.
He could get 2,000. Like he might get 2,020 touchdowns. Like it's an insane stat to say, especially considering his age. But yeah, sometimes age is just a number when you're a physical freak that you can't be compared to others. Like you just can't be. He ain't got no normal body, man. He ain't built normal. So like watching this rushing attack, as you mentioned, the Ravens are always good in the regular season. Yep. And Lamar Jackson this year, Last year he won MVP. He's better this year. He's better this year. I like some of his deep ball that I always criticize him. Like low and accurate. He made some nice deep ball passes recently. Like I was like him and Zay Flowers are really building that chemistry as the go-to. And your boy Rashad Bateman. Like I got a Bateman side because that guy had some nice catches recently, especially like the deep balls. Like I was like, oh, that is a nice in the pocket pass, like beautiful. So Lamar Jackson ran like 24 touchdowns. And 2 interceptions.
And Zhu, they're finally getting Mark Andrews involved too.
Oh yeah, Mark Andrews after a bunch of
he's coming
weird
back
games where he just has just did absolutely nothing. He was just out there blocking. And Mark Andrews showing he can steal a ball right now, especially with Likely out right now. So like this passing offense, but the problem with this team is they're a one-sided football team. Yeah, they're a one-sided football team, and even though the Pittsburgh Steelers, I think they got really good defense. The offense, after getting Russell Wilson there, I was skeptical as first. Guy coming off injury. Fields was all right. He was obviously his passing game, he's just not there. He's just
serviceable.
And I feel like guys like George Pickens' ability was very hindered by Justin Fields that just cannot make those deep ball passes. And when Russ came in, you saw Pickens become a real threat, like a real deep threat. Because I love George Pickens. This guy got all the physical traits and attributes of an alpha wide receiver one. So Russ really expanded his ability, and you got a guy like Mike Tomlin in playoffs every single year. So if you look at these two teams, it's going to go strictly on the divisional matchups.
Yep.
Whoever wins those games is going to win the division. It's as simple as that. There's 2 games on the board. They're dead even right now with 7 wins right now, but the Ravens got 1 more loss. So for me, if I had to bet my money on it, I'm going with the Ravens. I'm going with the Ravens in the regular season, even though the offense, the balance on this team is just not there because absolute it's just so bad watching the other side of the ball. I feel like really bad teams can go off on them too.
Yeah. But it's weird to see them not have a good defense.
Yeah.
I think that's the other thing, Yeah.
Even
with Roquan.
I remember in the earlier season, the Raiders were going off against them. I'm just you have these really bad football teams. Just look in the secondary. It's just it's Swiss cheese right now. It's everybody's open. Nobody can tackle. So obviously we saw this past week on Thursday Night Football, it was an absolute shootout. And I feel like a lot of teams, if you have a competent quarterback, you can take advantage of this Ravens secondary. So for me, this is a very flawed team. But if I'm looking at the Steelers, Russell Wilson, though, he kind of fixed some of their flaws as far as being a more versatile offense. While Justin Fields was more of a dink and dunker, and he could run it at an elite level. But Russell Wilson really unlocked this. So I got to give Tomlin, the head coaching staff, major props for benching a guy that got wins. He helped the team get wins. The team loved him, gave him props. Everybody rode with Justin. They're like, nah, we're going to bench him, put Russ in. And I'm like, oh, the offense looks a whole lot better. So I got to give him a lot of props for that. But for me, Russ is still, I'm not a true believer yet, but he's having a terrific season so far. So I'm going to give the edge to the MVP, I would say MVP favorite. You can even put King Henry probably in there right now. If you're going down,
King Henry gets 2,020 touchdowns.
So they got 2 MVP candidates on that roster, and I feel like based on that regular season wins, I feel like they're gonna edge them out, especially in the divisional matchup.
Yep.
Yeah, the thing about the Russell Justin dynamic too is Russell having that 1 year, $1 million contract. I wonder if part of the Justin Fields benching was what if Justin continues to get better and then they gotta, but not to where he's a prominent starter in this league, but just good enough, and then they have to pay him versus Russell. Maybe you can get away with having to pay another 2-year deal for $50 million or something. But Pittsburgh, to me, it just feels like ever since Big Ben, it's just they're piecemealing quarterback together because they know how to do everything else well. That's why they're such I almost feel like a on the cusp type franchise, because it's if they get just a really competent quarterback in there, they could literally run the AFC because they're just competent everywhere else. But I'm with you guys with the Ravens. To your point, people, when you brought up Mark Andrews, I think last year most of us thought that when he came back from that injury, he would be a little bit better than what he was, and he just kind of became a show of himself. And then at the beginning of this season with Isaiah Likely in that first game against the Chiefs, everybody's okay, this is Isaiah's team, and Mark's going to be a nice blocking tight end that's going to be able to maybe catch a couple passes. But now you're seeing Mark Andrews has returned to form, and that just adds to the amount of weapons. And plus, too, he's kind of was like has been Lamar's guy for a while. So, like, I think that relationship and that trust being built up was very important for Lamar and Mark. And now you got him along with Bateman can make a couple downfield catches. Zay Flowers is improving. We'll see what Deontay Johnson and I don't want to say he's cooked, but I mean in Carolina the quarterback issues were bad, and I think maybe in Baltimore he can have a little bit of a resurgence, but I'm not too sure on that. But I just think their defense is such an issue, and part of the reason why I think it's a huge issue is people forget the McDonald guy that went to Seattle. I think it was not so much because I don't think they lost a lot of players. I didn't look at their free agency and who left the team, but it does speak volumes that the defense is this bad. And I think part of that's because the coach left. So, you got 5, 6, 7 weeks left. They're gonna have to figure out something because, like I said, when it comes to playoff times, you're not gonna be able to do that. But in terms of the division, I'm just more trustworthy in Lamar, Derrick Henry, like I said, with Pittsburgh. I like Russell. He has a deep ball back, but I just, I don't know if the way they play, like they're really good at getting there ready to play their style, which I understand. And I do also understand that like they do have Lamar's number. So I think Lamar needs to get one of these games because if he loses this one in Pittsburgh, then that gives them all the momentum. And then now they're going to be coming into your, I guess, home field or whatever with all the, we don't care nothing about you guys being whatever your record is with the Pittsburgh Steelers, and we're going to go ahead and win this division. So I'm still going to go with the Ravens because I think if Lamar can split, I think the Ravens are going to at least drop one with Cincinnati or Cleveland because, like I said, this division is so highly contested that, like, you could probably look up a stat where the Browns and the Steelers and the Browns have the Steelers number, like, just something weird, or, like, Cincinnati has such and such number. Like, it's such a round robin of just, like, tough teams in that division. So, for me, I'm going to go with the better quarterback in the rushing game. So, I think Lamar and them going to get it done. But I am interested to watch that game. I'm not sure. I think, is that a Sunday night game? I'm not sure if it's Sunday night.
Should be. That's a great matchup.
It might be a 4:00 game. Hopefully it is. But, yeah, I'm super excited about that. But shifting from the AFC to the NFC, one of the upstarts this year with the Washington Commanders, watching them last week, speaking of the Pittsburgh Steelers, that was a tough game. I hate that it ended on I think it was like a false start, not a false start, but a offsides penalty. I think that Pittsburgh was able to do, so they were able to ice the game after that. But Washington has been kind of like the darling this year, and some people have said like some of their schedule is kind of helped with that. But we'll see over these next couple of weeks. And one of those teams they're going to be playing, I think this Thursday, it's going to be the Philadelphia Eagles. So I was looking at that division race, and respect to the Cowboys and Giants, but they're definitely not in this race as of right now. So
finally the Cowboys actually aren't fake. Okay, they are who we thought they were, as one coach once said.
Which is bad. So looking at the Eagles and the Washington Commanders, I think the Commanders are actually going to the Eagles. So looking at those two teams and seeing how their quarterbacks are playing as of late, I wanted to ask the guys, what is their thoughts on who could win that division? And Zhu, I'm going to let you take the first crack at this.
Oh, man. For me personally, betting against the Commanders has not done me well this year. It has not done me well. Beginning of the year, I picked the Eagles to make it out of NFC. I wasn't really I was put in a situation where I didn't really like any teams in NFC. Okay, the Eagles went all in. Saquon, huge addition, definitely changed that offense. He absolutely did. You see the difference from a running back like a DeAndre Swift. He's just a guy versus Saquon, who's that guy. So he's definitely revitalized that offense. And Jalen Hurts is starting to look like the Jalen Hurts I remember in that Super Bowl appearance where I was thinking, man, this guy is outplaying Patrick Mahomes right now. He was outplaying him in an absolute showdown in the Super Bowl. And beginning of the season, I was like, he's a little kind of like the guy from last year. But if Jalen Hurts is going to play like this, still rushing effectively, getting his weapons back, that's the thing. He got his weapons back now. Yep. Devontae Smith, A.J. Brown, you need all the weapons. Saquon obviously becoming that, I would say, that CMC type addition, that RB1 addition for the Niners. That's what CMC or Saquon is doing for this Eagles team right now. So for me personally right now, this Eagles team, man, I'm like, this offense is nice. This offense is really, really fun to watch. And I feel like moving up the chains and ability to still the tush push is still effective. It's still effective right now. I thought maybe a little drop off with no, not really. not really. Still very, very effective. Jalen Hurts getting rushing touchdowns for days right now. So for me personally, looking at this offense and the defense has been stepping up lately. Like I remember in the beginning of the year, they looked very, very shaky. Like they would just look like a defense that, like, I don't know, like the coach might have got fired at the beginning of the year the way they start out. But they've gathered together, and the defense has been playing extremely well for the last couple of games. And if you combine a defense, I think that's ranked top 11 right now. You compare that to an offense where I think it's an elite offense. Give me the Eagles, man. I'm betting against the Commanders again, but those Eagles, baby, man. This Eagles team is prime and ready. They're a win now, right now. Like the Commanders are a team like, oh wow, we're winning games, and we're relevant.
Yeah.
Like, we're relevant.
House money.
That's an automatic win.
It's house money for sure.
Usually rookie quarterback. Usually you're gonna have some bumps and bruises. Like he's not gonna be playing his best, especially a guy like Daniels right now. Like we know we see him down there in Chicago. Like you can make an argument that a guy like Bo Nix or like a Drake May looking kind of better in some of these games, especially lately in the past 2 weeks. I don't know what happened. That one Commanders game, that one Commanders Hail Mary game, it broke them.
It did.
It absolutely broke them mentally. Like the defense doesn't look the same. Obviously, the offense has been a little shaky ever since that Commanders, since that Commanders game, it just looks very, very shaky. So, like, you talking about a rookie quarterback in Daniels who's changed this franchise, like Scary Terry right now. Okay, he got a quarterback. Like Scary Terry's showing why that, like, I'm an elite receiver, but you give me a real quarterback, this guy's getting 100 yards a game, getting multiple
He's
touchdowns.
Gonna go shoot up the fantasy rankings next year for sure.
100%. Like this guy's that young receiver that's been consistently getting 1,000 yards, and he's gonna have a career year because of this transformational rookie quarterback. And like man, it's impressive what he's doing. It's very, very impressive.
He is almost 30, Terry McLaurin.
Oh, he is?
Really?
He's 29.
Wait that long already?
Yeah, a lot of people forget that.
Why
But
did
I
I
mean,
think
he's still viable. I mean, but
He's
got 6 touchdowns, 700 yards. I mean,
very impressive. Like he's going to easily hit 1,100, 1,200 yards this year. Maybe hit double-digit touchdowns. So like Dan has really changed this franchise of what you expect from a top 5 pick in a quarterback position, and he's doing it immediately. He is the CJ Stroud this year.
He is, but you know what that means, Zoo? I'm not going to use it to this full extent, but it's a bit of a cute story, man. It's a bit of a cute story. It is. And, I'm not saying that they're not a good football team. I think they're huge. I really think they do need Brian Robinson 100% back healthy.
Eckler's playing well.
He is playing well.
He's been having a little revitalization after last year's injury-riddled season.
But I think if they were to make a run in the playoffs, and I know we're just talking division here, but if they were to truly make some noise, they need both. Because they need a true bruiser.
Yep.
They need Eckler to focus a lot on the pass catching, which is where he is best at this point in his career. But yeah, I mean, he's been viable with B-Rob out the past couple of weeks. So that's really, maybe that was their concern with Brian Robinson or with Eckler, was having the other guy to kind of offset any potential injury issues. And look, I think a lot of credit, obviously, it does go to Jaden Daniels, but that defense has been playing well too. I know Russell Wilson lit him up this past week, but way better than we were expecting. They were the worst defense in the league last year, up there with the Cardinals. And actually, both of those teams have been starting to play a lot better defensively. And part of that, I think, is the belief in the quarterback play, right? Kyler's kind of stepped up recently. Obviously, Jaden Daniels has been playing great this year so far. I think the defense is like, hey, man, we got to back up our guy. He's doing his job. Well, we can't be the reason that we're losing every single game.
Yep.
So, I do think shout out the Commanders, man. 7-2, exact same situation, record-wise, bye-week-wise, as the AFC North that we just talked about, 7-2 and 7-3, respectively. So you do have the Eagles, who I believe – is it the Eagles or the Commanders that have their bye coming up? I think it's the Eagles, if I remember correctly. But that's besides the point to me. I agree with you, Zoo. I'm going to go with the Eagles if you're asking me to bet money on this. I just think Jaden's going to have they play each other twice, right? I think that's the big thing.
Great matchups.
And he knows that those are the 2 games that he has to win. If he can even split both of those games, or if the Commanders can split those games, I think that's huge. I do think they're solidified for a wild card spot unless the NFC West kind of picks up a little bit. I just think the Commanders are locked in. Whichever team doesn't win the division is locked in for the wild card. But I just think, to your point, Zoo, about the health of the Eagles, huge. They finally have Devontae back. They have A.J. Brown. They even have Dallas Goedert, who's always viable.
He's turned it up.
He's turned it up a little bit, finally scored this past week. Obviously, we all know the Saquon, that unbelievable hurdle. Which we weren't able to talk about last week. So just an absolute special. I've never seen something like that. And yeah, to your point, I know Darius Slayzu, I think on the back end cornerback spot, did get hurt. Not sure of his status at this point, but that is something to monitor. But I don't think it's going to be something that bleeds.
Cooper DeJean, they're fine.
Yeah, exactly.
Guy from Iowa, he's pretty good.
But to your point, Zoo, the thing for me has been Hurts's decision making.
Yep.
It's been his ability to play in the red zone. All I'll say is don't bet.
Yeah, they're cashing it in. Yep.
I'm glad I'm not doing the anytime touchdown parlays anymore because I probably would be throwing Saquon and Hurts is taking everything away from him in the red zone. But I just think this Eagles team is more complete and I think they're more experienced. I'm not a Sirianni fan. I do like Dan Quinn.
I don't think anybody is.
Yeah.
Even his own. He's not a likable guy.
He's not very likable. But you know who is likable? Saquon Barkley.
Very likable.
The players that are actually making the impact on the field. As long as Sirianni doesn't get in their way, I think they win this division. And I think they sweep the Commanders 2-0.
Wow. Sweep.
Sweep.
Yeah, because you look at on paper, I think Eagles elite offense. I don't think the Commanders, I would classify them as an elite offense.
They're above average.
Yeah, I think they're above average, but I think Eagles are definitely elite. And when you look at defensively, it's
not close.
It's just not close. So you got that gap on the defensive side of the football, and you just got the experience overall with his teams and expectations of we have the Eagles go pretty far this year with their additions. So for me,
I think the only way they win, Zoo, is if Jaden rushes the ball.
He has to pull that Lamar, just extend plays on offense, cash in on third downs, and just they have to light up this defense, which has been playing extremely well. So. Daniel's been doing it all year, so we'll see. He'll get a couple of punches against this Eagles team, but I think they're the definition of ahead of schedule. And as you mentioned, cute story, but they make a playoff. So good for a rookie pushing his team to make a playoff.
You know what, Zoo? It reminds me a little bit, very different, and I'm not comparing these two quarterbacks, but it's a little bit when the Giants made the playoffs and they beat the Vikings in the first round, but then they came back to earth. I could see something similar happening to the Commanders this year.
Yeah, they're not.
They're not Daniel Jones. I'm not saying that.
Daniel Jones's future is a little bit bleaker than because even when Daniel Jones did that, I was like, I think Daniel Jones.
I know him. There was one guy that bought the GM and bought that. He bought it all.
Yeah.
Well, I'm not comparing the quarterbacks. I'm comparing the team outcomes and the track for technically both of their first years in the league. So,
yeah, I think Jaden. Future is definitely brighter. And I also think, to your point, the only way they have a chance in this game, I think, is with Brian Robinson coming back. Because I think part of the reason why they struggled the last couple of weeks is Brian Robinson, even though Austin Eckler is more of the scat back and can catch, it can make a little bit more, I guess you would say, dynamic plays. Brian Robinson knows how to just pound the rock to where if it's 2nd and 5, 2nd and 6, he's getting the first down and he can catch. So he's a really underrated complete back. So I think with having that I guess you would say, type of back to support Jaden, it just always helps. And the same could be said about Jalen Hurts and Saquon Barkley. I've always been under the impression the best way to have Jalen Hurts play his best is when he's rushing the ball. And I don't mean he's running around, running for 20, 35 yards. I'm just saying getting first downs, getting key, maybe 3rd and 1, 2nd and 2s, whatever. When he's rushing the ball, I feel like it's almost like he gets lathered up and then he's able to make those touch throws to his two elite receivers because let's just be honest, AJ and Devontae are receiver 1. So when those guys are healthy, it's going to open up everything in that playbook. And it gets to my main point, which is Kellen Moore. I believed in him from the start. I felt like the only thing that was going to hinder him was Sirianni. And I think part of why they're so good is maybe, and this is just a slight bit of credit to Sirianni, is maybe he's kind of pulled back and been okay, Kellen, take more control of this offense. And I feel like we've maybe seen that because Jalen has been playing differently. Goddard's now feel like he's more involved. So the Eagles, to me, man, they've always just had a super loaded offense. Like I said, I don't know if I just mentioned Saquon, but he's just another elite back. And two guys that have played kind of at the beginning of the season, you didn't really see as much, but they're kind of coming on now as Nakobe Dean and Jalen Carter, which are two Georgia guys, which is not surprising. But like Jalen Carter, when they made that draft pick, everybody was like, oh my God, like this is just going to be another homewrecker for that defense. And he's starting to come along. And then Nakobe Dean being, if you're a recruiting guy, you looked at profiles of how he was in high school, he was just a super fast middle linebacker, outside linebacker that can run sideline to sideline and make plays. So to me, they've always had just, and like another guy, Cooper DeJean, like I know Darius Slay, hopefully he's able to come back, but Cooper DeJean is another guy from Iowa who's a true man-to-man corner who I think can make plays for them as well. So to me, the Eagles, I think why they were such a popular pick is because they have one of the more talented rosters in the league. And what I think most people's issues was Sirianni. Now, you don't have to like the personality and how he goes back. Because to me, the worst fan base as a coach to go back and forth with is the Eagles. Like that, you should not want to do like a shouting match with the Eagles because you're going to lose that. Because they're just the type of fans like, how people say like they'll take it there. Like the Eagles fans will take it there. Like they'll show up at your house more than likely. They'll throw something from the stand. Like they don't care. They'll get a lifetime ban. They don't care. They're still going to boo you and be disrespectful. So to me, him getting caught up in all that theatrics of that is troublesome. But I do think maybe within the meeting room, because I think he is aware that if they didn't have a good year this year, he was on a chopping block.
Yep.
He was aware, like, hey, I got a gym here and Kellen Moore. I need to let him control that offense. If you look at how the Dallas Cowboys look this year, I know people are saying like, well, they're not as talented, and I do think there is some truth to the Dallas Cowboys. Like, I don't think they're that talented team. They're like the big three Miami Heat. They got the stars at the top, but like, the bench. And, 6-man is lacking. So to me, Kellen Moore was a guy that had Dak playing really well last year. And I just thought when I saw him with the Cowboys, and to me, I just feel like it's anytime you're a coordinator and you do well with the Cowboys, I think you're better than what you really are because, like, there's so many things that can limit you in terms of, like, Jerry Jones, GMs, whoever. So him actually coming to the Eagles, I was like, I think that's going to be a great marriage. And right now, they started out rocky. And one thing I don't like is how they kind of just, like, let teams – fester around because that Jacksonville game was gross. Ooh. Like I know they won, but it's just like that they could have lost that game, and I would have had a whole different mindset of how I looked at the team. But they won it, so I'm gonna pick them. I think this Thursday night game is going to be a statement game for them. Like I said, the only way that Washington has a chance is if Brian Robinson plays and they control the clock. But Washington, they're gonna need to split because if they don't, or if they get blown out this Thursday, it could get a little nerve-wracking to where they might
cute story-ish,
Yeah, it might turn into a horror story after a while. It might turn into a horror story because I don't looking at that schedule, it might get a little dicey. So if they were trying to plan on getting to the playoffs, they need to split the Eagles for sure. And
the only thing is, Sean, they play the Cowboys twice. They play the Titans, they play the Saints, and they play the Falcons. Besides the Falcons, I think they could win every game. So even if they lost both to the Eagles and let's say they lost to the Falcons, they're still finishing 11-6.
I don't think they sweep the Cowboys. I think they got too much pride. And I think Micah may come back because I think he's going to be all injured. Like, he is?
Yeah, he played last week.
Okay.
Yeah, played last week.
Well,
but it's Cooper Rush or Trey Lance, man. I don't know.
Oh, Jesus.
Well, if they start Trey Lance, then I'm out. Cooper Rush has shown
I need Cooper Rush to keep balling, man. I need some fantasy points.
Yeah, Cooper Rush should be the starter because he's shown that he can. He's not a
he's not a bomb. He's not one of those backups when you're in and it's just like, oh, Jesus Christ.
Like Matt Jones. Like he's not Matt Jones. How interesting, really quick, how interesting is Jacksonville? Like Trevor getting hurt again is like, God, what if they because right now they're like have the odds to have the number one pick. That's insane. Like they keep
200.
losing.
He got 200. Shout out to his agent for getting the deal done.
Yeah.
Because very important. Because after this
he also might suffer from I call this the Carolina Panthers syndrome, where it's like maybe Jacksonville, because they're just such a bad franchise outside of that Blake Bortles year. Like maybe if Trevor went to like another place, he might be like good. Who knows? Because Sam Darnold proved that like the Carolina Panthers had no idea what they were doing with him. Neither did the Jets. Like some programs in the NFL are just not good programs. They just don't know how to freaking get it done.
What a segue!
Ah, dang! I didn't. Oh man, I didn't even mean to do that. That was crazy. I forgot we had I was about to do the bets. I totally forgot about the Chicago segment. But speaking of franchises that are struggling right now, most people see the news that Shane Waldron got fired. and it's hard to kind of defend it after seeing like how the offense has looked. Like I said, I'm not a avid Bears watcher, but seeing that I was like 22, 23 consecutive drives of like not having a touchdown, which is
just nothing.
That's just that is nasty for any team in the NFL to go through. So, he was highly respected in Seattle. He revived Geno Smith, but the fact that he could not figure out what to do with Caleb Williams in Chicago and the facts that he got fired prompted me to think about in the group chat. Be like, let me see what P. Bush to check the temperature of what's the Chicago Bears weather looking like right now, and I'm giving the free range to talk about his Bears and Shane Waldron and a bunch of different guys. So
I don't want to be inconsiderate of anyone that has gone through what's gone in the hurricane, man. But we got hurricane number 3 coming through Chicago this week, man. It's been a whirlwind. I think a lot of people saw this coming. I think to your point, Sean, not the Patriots week, but the week before was very bad against the Cardinals. And then leading into this week, I said to everyone, this Patriots game is a trap game. Drake May is not a bum. Now, he didn't carry them to victory, but he did enough.
Did not.
And, at this point, I actually blame Poles a bit more on the front end. I mean, there's been reports of both the Raiders and the Bears both having interviewed Kingsbury. They both went in the wrong direction.
Yep.
Now, to the point is, I do think Kingsbury was eyeing working with Jaden Daniels. And if
Caleb Williams and him have a relationship back in college.
You're right, but I think maybe they just moved on and they said no, or Kingsbury said no. We don't know what happened in that back room, but this Shane Waldron hiring, I could tell right from the start, man. One of his first press conferences, his hands were shaking. He couldn't answer questions. You just knew it was to your point. You just made the point about Sirianni and Eagles fans. Bears fans are just a slightly nicer version of that. They won't scream at you and throw something at you, but they will absolutely tirade you, especially with questions in the media room. Yep. And he was not able to handle that right off the bat. That was telling to me. Now, do I write all of the offense off on him? No. The biggest thing for the Bears is the offensive line. They have literally none of their starters. I think Darnell Wright might be the only starter that has stayed healthy all year. Everyone else is out. So he's the most pressured quarterback in the league, rightfully so. They're picking on that O-line. He has zero time in the pocket to make a decision. And even when he does have a little bit of time, he is too indecisive because he is a rookie quarterback and he knows what's coming after him every single play, that he's flustered. And I don't blame him. I do think maybe this is a good trial by fire for him to go through, but this could also absolutely crush his confidence for the rest of his career. It really just depends on how strong of mental acuity he has. And at this point, they have such a stacked team on offense. I mean, DJ Moore, who was an unbelievable receiver the 2 years he's been here with the Bears, comes in. He might be the worst. You know what, Zoo? This is reminiscent of Allen Robinson year. Like when you drafted him in the 5th round, DJ Moore is at that level of where he's going in fantasy football drafts. You can't trust him. You can't start him. Keenan Allen has no more than 40 yards, I think, in only one game, and he has 2 touchdowns, and they were both in the same game. DeAndre Swift actually was having a good streak there for a couple weeks. He had 4 or 5 very good weeks. But I think I think, Sean, you made the point, or maybe it was Yuzu. Once the Commanders, that Hail Mary, that just took – that was the gut punch. They're just completely winded, and they haven't been able to get their breath back. And teams know that, and they're stepping on their throats. So, I'm writing off this season. It is his rookie year. I think a lot of people had too high of expectations. Now, does that affect how the offense and how the team should play? Of course not. But I think the fans that are disgruntled with how they're playing this year, they shouldn't be that shocked. They built the offensive team before they built the offensive line. That is a horrible general manager decision.
Yep.
He thought it was going to be good enough. And if he added these pieces, he could get the ball out quickly on a lot of slants and quick plays. But he needs that Penei Sewell draft pick, man. He needs that Lions where they take the best and arguably.
Yep, about to say the Lions.
Yeah, out of non-positional players, Penei Sewell might be one of the best players in the NFL. Out of like pass catchers, running backs, tight ends, and quarterbacks, he might be one of the best players in the NFL. And I think it's a testament to why the Lions are a success, on top of other things, of course. But Jared Goff ain't, he's not an MVP candidate, and they're probably going to win the NFC. I mean, they're just a complete team, and that's without Aiden Hutchinson too. So there are teams that are dealing with injuries and dealing with things that are out of their control, just like the Bears are, but they have a better organization that built the team in a more timely fashion, and they didn't rush it. I think Poles got excited. I genuinely think he got excited when he fleeced the Panthers. He got excited when he knew that meant Caleb Williams. Do I think they should have considered Jaden Daniels? I said that around the draft.
It's still too early.
I wouldn't be mad if it's Jaden, but it is too early to assess that. To your point, CJ Stroud has come down to earth this year, right?
Yep.
After having an absolutely monster year. It's very possible for Jaden to do that. And, you could look at someone like Peyton Manning, who has the record for rookie interceptions. And then so you can't assess this team. And a lot of people, they have one, recency bias. Two, they need instant gratification.
Yep.
That's on the fan side. But that puts pressure on Poles to make good decisions. And, unfortunately, they're going to lose out on the Keenan Allen value. They're probably going to have to delay Rome Odunze's progression about a year because he just can't really get anything going. And I don't see them doing anything for at least 2 years. And am I okay with that? Yes, I've kind of come to that conclusion.
Come to terms.
I've been fine with that really since the Hail Mary. I just knew it wasn't going to be their year. It wasn't going to be
It broke his soul.
You know what? This ain't nothing new. So it's not like I'm like, we're a Super Bowl team 5 years ago or something, and we're starting from scratch. We've been bad for damn near 20 years, man. So, I do think that the Waldron firing was a necessity. We'll see what's his name who came in, Thomas. It's not Thomas Jones. I forget his name, but former running back in the NFL. He's just kind of on an interim basis. I'm sure he's going to try and just give Caleb opportunities to play. But it's teaching Poles that he needs to literally draft only offensive line this year and defensive line for the defense. You win
Thomas
games
Brown,
in the trenches. Yeah. It's something that is always said in the NFL. You win games in the trenches, whether it's sacking or pressuring the quarterback, or salvaging your quarterback from being pressured and sacked. And the Bears can't do either one of those this year. Chalk up the season, man. So, yeah. Moving on, as Zhu said, on to the next one, man. On to the next one.
Yeah, you got to move on from this team and any just people had belief this year. I had belief. I had belief, and it was false belief. Caleb Williams over under 3,400 yards, not even close. Not even close, man. That was the over under the beginning of the year, 3,400 passing yards. I think he's gonna have pretty much the year I'm thinking Daniels is having. I thought Caleb was gonna have, especially with offensive weapons, especially on the outside. I felt like he was gonna be able to take advantage of those guys. But you're right, man. The offensive line is an atrocity, and Caleb Williams has just been worse than I thought. Some decision makings, I think he looks a little rattled a couple times. Especially when things don't go his way, you just feel like a little lack of confidence for a guy that's super, super confident in his ability. He's losing it. Like in college, you get away with running a ball, do that. I call it the Johnny Manziel. Like you're just a better athlete. You can make these crazy plays off one leg. Thinking he's Patrick Mahomes in video game mode. No, don't compare him to Patrick Mahomes. He's a good quarterback. Because right now he's playing like a bad quarterback.
He is.
And a lot of his
worst Zoo is Anthony Richardson. That's the only
that's true. That's true. So I'm like, okay, I'm not gonna call him a bust. We got to give him time. Obviously, the offensive line is the most important thing for this team to get it done. But overall, as this season, I'm looking at it, how it unfolded, just an absolute disappointment at every level.
Yep.
Beginning of the year, 8.5 wins. That was the expectations, and They got, obviously with the Swiss cheese schedule in the beginning, they got a couple more wins. But that Commanders game, and since that, just getting obliterated by the Patriots and the Cardinals.
Yeah,
those weren't competitive games. And the offense is just, I never see them in the red zone.
Never. That's why I only watch red zone, Zoo. I don't even have to watch them play.
Seriously, the Bears never in the red zone. And as a guy who was pretty high on Rome Odunze this year, I think he's still a very good player, but this offense is so inept in the play calling and everything too. Obviously this guy's a scapegoat, the offensive coordinator. He's not doing that great of a job, but you got to look at everyone in the picture. Everyone's at fault right now in this organization and for getting like for obviously pulling probably one of the greatest trades ever for trading on Bryce Young, a guy who's struggled. They still got moves to make. Like you pulled off a move, but you gotta follow it up with some other complementary moves because right now these additions in the offseason looking like a couple of duds, giving DeAndre Swift big money.
It's looking like they should have taken a tackle instead of Roma.
Yeah, that's what I thought they were to do. I thought that, but Roma dudes.
You know who did that? You know who did that? Like as I was bringing up the draft.
Chargers.
Yeah, they took all over neighbors. And look who's got the better record, the Chargers, over the New York Giants. Like sometimes I think,
and that's a tough decision to make because Neighbors
is a monster for sure.
He's special.
But a tackle is longevity.
You get a guy in Harbaugh who believes climbing trenches, running the football, even though they got a guy in Herbert who his stats are
playing well.
This year. He's playing really good. I think he's an elite quarterback. His number's not as good because the way they play is a little different because of the receiving weapons. Lad McConkey, who's having a nice season, but they don't really have real elite weapons on the outside. So they went with J.K. Dobbins in the trenches game, and they're a really good football team this year.
They could be a wild card team with and only because of the AFC East struggling. I'll say that.
100% AFC East.
That opened up the AFC playoffs, the Dolphins and the Jets.
For sure. Yeah. So, this Bears.
You should always – it's just when you got a younger quarterback, and I'm pretty sure Washington's probably going to take this blueprint. I think everybody's going to be like, oh, let's get a bunch of defensive linemen. Let's get a bunch of linebackers, DBs, whatever, to improve the defense. But I think if they get into the draft and there's an elite tackle or an elite guard or center, they're going to draft him for Jaden. Because to me, also with his skill set being a runner, you're going to want to protect that guy that's going outside the pocket and maybe having linemen that can get and move around and kind of, run around with their quarterback and make sure he's protected. So to your point, or I think Zhu made the point, you always kind of just want to get a tackle because I think people got a little enamored with Joe Burrow and Jamar. I won't say they got enamored, but I think when they saw that because how good they were at LSU, they was like, oh, let's just go ahead and do that because that's what Joe Burrow wanted. And I do understand that. But at the same time, we're also learning that Jamar might end up being one of the best receivers in the NFL
time
ever. Yeah. So that his evaluation is a little different versus, Rome Odunze is a good receiver. I don't know if he's on that track yet. We haven't seen that yet. But Jamar is a different type of receiver. So, if it's a receiver that may end up being top 10, top 15 of all time, well, then, you should draft that guy. But to your point, I think the offensive line is going to be a position of focus for them going into the offseason. I also think Caleb, and it was one of the things he struggled with in college, he needs to play within the pocket. He doesn't do it. And I think people kind of sleep on, he's not the biggest guy. He's 6'1". He's a legit 6'1". He's not 6'2", 6'3". And I think in the pocket, he is not as comfortable. Now, there have been – and the reason why I think he got drafted number 1 overall is because he can do it. It's not like he can't do it. I just don't think he likes to do it. But also, we're going to go back to my theory, which this is not brain science. It's rocket science. It's not something that I – thought about for years upon years. And it's okay, this formula is going to work. I just seen where the NFL is trending. The main guy who's your head coach needs to be an offensive coordinator. Just needs to be a guy who has an offensive background. Now, there are exceptions. Mike Tomlin. Well, what's the difference from Mike Tomlin? He's usually, and I know I used to make fun of Arthur Smith, and it's he's not head coach material, but obviously he's a pretty good offensive coordinator because he got that offense making Russell Wilson look good. Mike Tomlin's always hired really, 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 really good offensive coordinators. And I think part of that's because it's the Pittsburgh institution. So he's kind of a guy that gets away with it. Todd Bowles, he's kind of figured it out with Baker. There are definitely exceptions to the rule. But in general, if you just see how a lot of the NFL coaching and the shift of how everything is going with the league, you need a guy who's offensively inclined in your seat. Now, that doesn't mean you just need to go get the quarterback coach for the Jaguars and say, oh, well, he's got offensive background experience. Let's hire him. It's no, you need to get a guy who's really, really good. And to your point, people are maybe if they can somehow get Ben Johnson, then that's going to be how everyone's going to love because he has shown the ability to do great offenses.
You could equate that very similarly to Kellen Moore leaving for the Eagles.
Yeah. And that's why I've always been I think, dude, I would be mad if the Bears took a chance on Kellen Moore. If the Eagles got to the Super Bowl, I know that would be a massive risk because I don't know how long Kellen Moore's been coaching as an OC, but I wouldn't mind taking a chance on him because If you're telling me that you got Dak playing one of your best, like some of his best year or one of his best years as a Cowboy, and you're able to get Jalen Hurts back to the NFC Championship game or the Super Bowl, perhaps, like that speaks to his ability to speak to quarterbacks that, I mean, Dak's not as fleet of foot, but like
different,
similar schema.
He can shift his scheme for the different type of quarterback play, and that's huge because that's why Waldron wasn't doing anything. He wasn't shifting his scheme.
Yeah, Waldron, I hate to say like maybe the job is too big for him or whatever, but it's still tough for me. He had to get fired because he just was not good. Like you can't have that many positions not score a touchdown. But it's also too like I feel like sometimes with a lot of those coordinators, like you get under a guy like Eberflus, we don't know how much influence Shane Waldron maybe was able to do because that's the thing about the defensive coach that I hate is it's almost like I think of like the offensive skill guy, like the coordinator, the skill coaches, position coaches, and like the quarterback coach, they're all in a room and they create a game plan. And then when I think of anytime you have a defensive coach, they probably take like 2 to 3 days during the weekend to figure out the next week's game plan. And then right when they're getting ready to hand over the game plan to the head coach, Eberflus looks at it like, slash these 10 passing plays and let's do 12 more runs. Like, because he's the head coach. So it's like, I don't know how much control that Shane Waldron had, but still to your point, he should have been fired because you can't be that inept, especially with the expectations. So I think they're going to definitely emphasize the offensive line to recap it. Going to have to figure out Keenan Allen. I don't know what his contract situation is, but he kind of looks like maybe he's over the hill. And you got to fix the DJ Moore relationship because I don't want to hear any story of that is straight up. No, he's too good of a guy. I don't think Rome's ready to be number one. You got to fix the DJ Moore relationship by hell or high water. Like him and Caleb Williams going to have to go on some trips, hang out.
There is no nobility in poverty. I have been a rich man and I have been a poor man, and I choose rich every fucking time.
Now, getting back into, because we didn't do last week, our Week 11 bets, and P, we should go ahead and start us off.
Yeah, man. I mean, I won't recap too much of my week last week. Brock Purdy paid off very nicely. He was kind of the chalk pick, though, so not a very big win week. It was just a lot of these random dudes popping off, and if you didn't have Marquez Valdez-Scantling, man, you weren't winning anything, and who the hell was starting him in that carousel of Saints wide receivers now that they have no one. So this week, man, very interesting. I think running backs are getting priced out. You can't find any value at running back. I think Nick Chubb is the only viable cheap running back, and he just isn't. He's not at the level that we've seen him at in years past. Zhu, David Montgomery is probably actually the cheapest solid running back, and so you have to pay up at running back. So I'm gonna start there. I'm going heavy on Kyren Williams this week. He could feast against the Patriots. I know DeAndre Swift didn't have a big game, but it's just because they couldn't get anything going, like we just talked about. So I'm very high on Kyren this week. I also like Jahmyr Gibbs, but he's very boomer bust on like his just big runs. Sometimes it's Demont, sometimes it's Gibbs, sometimes it's neither one of them. So I'm not taking a risk on Gibbs, but I am going to take a risk on your boy, Devon A-Chain against the Raiders.
I hope so, man. I'm waiting for the A-Train to come back.
So I'm paying up. I'm paying up this week for running back. There's really no other way around it. You can maybe get away with, like I said, the Nick Chubb, maybe a Tony Pollard, but I really don't like the matchups there. So I'm sticking with the high end guys. Give me those 30 pieces on DraftKings, man. That's what we need. So because of that, I'm going cheap on the quarterback carousel, man. I mean, everyone's going to be on Lamar. Everyone's going to be on Jalen against the Chiefs. Ooh, that could be a nice payoff, but you got to pay up for it. Guys on my end, Purdy running it back against Seattle, man. That could be a barn burner game. Very high scoring.
Yep.
Bo Nix becoming fantasy viable against the Falcons.
He's relevant.
So very, very good there. But Drake May against the Rams could be throwing the ball a lot. I wouldn't mind it. But I'm going with let the man cook. Russell Wilson against that Swiss cheese secondary. And to our discussion about Baltimore scores fast. And teams
they do. They get the ball field down really quickly.
So quickly. And so teams know that they have to score touchdowns against them. I think a Russell Wilson.
You got to be aggressive.
You have to be. And you know what that means? A George Pickens stack. So I'm paying up for 3 premier players with A-Chain, Kyren Williams, George Pickens. A little cheaper with the Russ. So you got to find some savings here and there. I'm fine throwing in Cortland Sutton. I think he just gets a lot of target volume. Bo Nix and him seem to have a pretty good connection. Also, happy throwing in Jawan Jennings, kind of get a little bit of action.
Purdy loves him.
Purdy loves him. 11 targets last week. That's just beautiful. He's in that Ayuk role.
Yep.
And then a cheap guy to throw in there, man. I'm either going Pop Douglas against the Rams.
Ooh.
High volume. Demario Douglas, man. Number one on the Patriots.
He's like, ooh.
Or another guy that here to my point about Josh Allen, Matt Collins has actually been getting a lot of targets, and especially I would be targeting him very cheap this week if Keon Coleman is out.
Coleman's out.
If Coleman's out,
they're saying Keon Coleman's probably not going to play.
He's probably not going to play. Then there you go, Matt Collins, a good cheap one. And then to kind of round it out, man, I wouldn't mind a double tight end stack. It's usually what you have to do when you pay up. Oh yeah, when
double tight end.
When you pay up, Mark Andrews this week against Pittsburgh, Joey Porter Jr. is going to shut down Zay Flowers. I think he is going to shut down on the outside. It's going to be a lot of Mark Andrews up the middle. Good play. Another tight end I'm looking for, Mr. Old Reliable, target hound himself, Hunter Henry, man. Absolutely cheap.
I like him.
I hope you're right. He's been tight end a lot this week.
There you go. 7 to 8 targets a game with Drake May under the helm. Even if he doesn't score touchdowns, man, if you're getting a cool PPR 12, 13, 14 points out of him, that's a great week. So, yeah, man, it's really top-heavy, Zoo. There's less value. Got to find the value at the tight end position, at the quarterback position, and you have to pay up at the running back and wide receivers. So, Russell Wilson, we need to let him cook this week. But all those quarterbacks I mentioned, I will have stacks on every single one of those guys.
Interesting. Yeah, especially Russell Wilson, daily fantasy or regular fantasy. A lot of QBs on bye this week, so he's a popular streaming option, especially for a guy that kind of has passing touchdown upside this year, especially for the 3 first games that he's played. Like, he's been throwing a lot of passing touchdowns. So Russ is a guy that I have been eyeing in a lot of my leagues where you need to pick up a quarterback. Obviously, for Kyler Murray on bye, a lot of quarterbacks on bye this week. So going for Russ this week, man. For me this week, gotta go old reliable. This is a money pick every single time I see it. When the Chiefs are underdogs, you pick them for the money line, man. It's just as simple as that. I know against the Broncos, this just happens every single time. They play a nice, competitive. We've seen this story so many times. So many. They play a bad team.
Mickey Mouse.
Competitive. Boom. They somehow just pull it off, man. Because the Chiefs haven't lost this year. They just don't lose games. And you're playing against a team, the Buffalo Bills, where they had some epic battles. Josh Allen, he would be the MVP favorite, but Lamar is just playing out of his mind. So he's number 2 right now in my books. But Josh Allen's having a hell of a year this year, especially leading this team to the number of wins. Like, a lot of people didn't really think that this Bills team was going to be the team in the AFC East. Like, a lot of people picked.
I didn't. I picked the freaking Jets.
Yeah, the Jets.
God almighty.
Which is an atrocity. Like, I was a believer because I'm a Josh Allen guy. And even without an alpha wide receiver 1, like, he got the Khalil Shakir here, the Dalton Kincaid there, the Matt Collins, like Keon Coleman. Like, it's just a ragtag bunch of dudes. Yep. And Keon Coleman's in and out of the lineup. Amari Cooper was injured last week. So he just never had that core receivers. But still, this Buffalo Bills team has really shown that.
James Cook.
Yeah, James Cook. He's been a really good back. And I got you out the backup, Ray Davis.
Yeah.
Like, if you got James Cook, you need a cup. It's Ray Davis, because this is a guy that shows explosive receiving ability. So he could be that guy that he could be up the middle and he could be receiving back. So if Ray Davis is a low-key guy, so he might be on free agency right now.
You sound like you're about to bet on the Bills, Zoo. I don't know why you're betting on the Chiefs, man.
No. I'm giving props where prop is due, because their consensus number 2. Some people are just silver place medal guys. The Chiefs are gold medal Michael Phelps winning championships, winning races, man. It's okay to be number 2, man. It's okay to be Hakeem Olajuwon, man. It's okay. There's nothing wrong being behind Jordan. You're still Hakeem the Dream, man. You're going to get a statue and everything. Josh Allen.
Where is this game at?
Oh, it's at the Bills.
That's
it's at the Bills. That's why Vegas is giving. I'm getting flashbacks already of the 49ers when they were freaking favored against the Chiefs. And I was like, what are they doing? I respect the Bills a lot, but the Kansas City Chiefs is still the best team in football. You're getting Pacheco back, so you're getting no more Carson Steele. I'm done with Carson Steele. Pacheco's the backup running back, obviously coming back for injury. I think they're also getting another DN coming back, so the team's getting healthier. Mahomes still hasn't had that explosive. Like, he had one explosive game all year, and he always gets up to play his buddy Josh Allen. When they see those guys, I'm like, okay, boys, we're going on 4th and 1s. We're going for touchdowns. We're not settling for field goals. I feel like it's going to be an absolute burner, but I still like that Chiefs defense more than that Bills defense, even though the Bills defense is actually pretty solid this year, even though losing a lot of people at free agency. But for me, you get plus money on Mahomes is an automatic bet. Just an automatic bet. Just don't even think about it. You're giving me plus odds on a team where they're underdogs, and I at best is a 50-50. If it's 50-50 and I get plus money, hammer Mahomes, man. Even better, if they're down halftime, hammer Mahomes again, because this is a second-half team, man. It's a second, especially in the fourth quarter. Like, this team in the clutch and the execution in the red zone, like, they bring out, I think they like tested out stuff in the first quarter. In the fourth quarter, they bring out those nice plays. They get those easy tutties. Little Kelsey dunk there, Kareem Hunt tutty. Like, D-Hop is in there now. So, my goodness, man. Especially in the clutch, this is a team that makes comebacks. So, even if they're down in the first quarter, which I could absolutely see, like Josh Allen just goes down, scores immediately, just give me Chiefs, man. Chiefs all day, man. Give me that 10-0.
Hell of a game.
Oh, I hope so, man. I hope so. These teams never disappoint when they play. So, I'm ready for seeing two stars go after each other.
Yeah, the Chiefs, they just know how to win, man. And it's like, it's so ugly. And like you said with the Broncos, when you see them block the field goal, it's like, now you start thinking like, okay, are they going to run the table? Because it just seems like they have every type of football god on their side. So, that's going to be a tough with them going to Buffalo. But like you said, even now, if they're down 15, 17, 20, then I'm not betting the Chiefs in the second half. But like, if it's a 10 or less, then I probably would bet the Chiefs, because like they're going to figure out how to just win the game, because that's what they've been doing all season. Yeah, and like you said, sometimes the ball just bounces your way. So that Mahomes bet might be a good one. But for me, the week we were on, my parlay definitely didn't hit. But last week, I had some pretty good look. And like I said, I always tell people to check the show notes. So I had out last week for my, I call them give them 3 parlay that I started to do. I had Tampa Bay last week, which is the plus 6.5 with the 49ers, which I was actually funny. I was on the phone with one of my friends, and I was like, man, I think, I know the 49ers won, but it's like, like during that game, I was like, God, what if I would have took the freaking Tampa Bay money line? But then it's like, okay, I took the plus 6.5, so that's fine. Then I had them. Then I had Pittsburgh money line, which was a 1-point win. So I was happy about that. And then with to finish it off, I had Denver Broncos, because I did research on that one. Like, Denver, the last 4 to 5 games have always played Kansas City tough. So, and it was 7.5.
Oh,
like,
yeah. Chiefs don't cover spreads, man. The Chiefs don't cover spreads.
Like so I'm definitely that 7.5 is massive in the NFL, I feel like. So it was like I was able to get that parlay. So you could have, I think that was at 780. It was like 717, but like, lines fluctuate, whatever, and all that stuff. So that was one where, put a little cash on that one. You could have had a pretty decent payday. So I was very happy about that. But going back to the odds, this week has been very tough. I'm not confident with this parlay at all, because it's just a lot of these spreads are very, very, and it's funny saying that because there's no parlay that I'm very happy about. But I also look into it too, where it's like these are games that I would love just individually. So a lot of this I've always say, like, you can bet these individually or together. But the first one I'm going with is Cincinnati, and who are they playing? I think the Chargers. I feel like this is a gotta have it for the Cincinnati Bengals, and I just liked how they're all now. Bear in mind, I do know it's the Ravens defense, but I just like how they looked on offense. And I think maybe they can get in a shootout with the Chargers. Now, the Chargers defense has played better, but I think on that fast track in LA, good weather, I think there's a chance Cincinnati can get them on the money line. Atlanta, I think they're going to have a bounce back. Now, Denver does have an elite corner. They have an elite defense, but I think Atlanta needs this bad. And compared to all the other pieces of games that I could maybe – this was probably my toughest one in terms of like trying to fit it into the 3-leg parlay. I just think Atlanta needs to bounce back from the Saints and kind of bury the Buccaneers, because I know they beat the Bucs twice this year, but weird things can happen if you start losing a bunch of games now. You may end up losing some division games you don't need to lose, and now you're sitting here at 8-8 at the end of the season. You may not make the playoffs, so I think Atlanta needs to get this win. So I got their money line, and the Seattle Seahawks, to me, are like one of the most bipolar teams, because there's some weeks where they really compete with teams, and it's like, oh, this is the team that can maybe make the playoffs. And there's some teams some weeks they just get blown out. With it being a division game, and this speaks more to about the 49ers than the Seahawks, I think the 49ers are okay. I think they're good, but McCaffrey, now I know it's his first game back. He looked all right. Do I think he's gonna come into next week and just go 20 for $115? Like, no, I think it's gonna take weeks and weeks for him to ramp up. Division game, like I said, Debo, South Carolina alum, I love him a lot, but I mean, he's not rushing the ball as much as he usually do. So now, to me, it's like now you're depending on Ricky Pearsall. George Kittle's playing out of his mind. So if he just keeps throwing to George Kittle, then like, you know, all bets are off. But plus 6.5, like I said, anytime you get to 6 or 7, I feel like in the, you know, spread, I kind of like my chances of it being a little bit closer. And with it being a division game, I think Seattle can maybe bring that back. So I'm going with that plus 6.5. And I think the total with all of those are right around 700. And I do need to put in this disclaimer, like this does fluctuate, like lines change, injuries happen. So it's like you guys usually don't get this podcast till like Wednesday or Thursday. So things can happen. But at the same time, for the most part, these are kind of going to stay in that same range. So, you know, like I said, I like a lot of these. I would say the one I like the most as an individual bet is probably Cincinnati and the Chargers, because Cincinnati, I think they're a good team. Their just defense sucks. They got good offensive guys, and T. Higgins has been hurt. So if he somehow comes back, that could be another player that Joe Burrow can throw to. So I think Cincinnati versus the Chargers is the one I'm most confident in. But if you wanted to add those three together and get you a nice little plus 700, maybe it fluctuates down to 690, 680 or something like that. That'll be something you can put in there and win you some cash. So yeah, that's my bet for this week for sure.
I like that.
Yeah. Yeah. Parlays, listen, like I've always said, parlays are just tough to hit. They're tough to hit.
I want one or two maybe last year.
Yeah.
And it's just so difficult.
It's hard, but it's like I wanted to switch it up a little bit. And like I said, some of these, man, you could get you some value. And, you know, to me, I always feel like if you're going to do the parlays and do 3 of them, like maybe you see 2 of them that you like with mine and you want to add your own. And like I said, I think it helps with me because I don't really have a team that I don't have a NFL team I'm very keen on. So it's like I can just kind of look at it objectively. But like you said, parlays, shot in the dark sometimes. But hey, if you hit like you hit last week, like I think for instance, if you would have put like 100 down on my bet last week, you probably could have got like $1,100, maybe $1,200. Like you could have made you some real good cash. So I was super excited. I like the winnings I had last week on that, but I definitely am sitting here looking at this week and it's like, I don't know if it's gonna happen this week. So happy betting, guys. Happy betting. But for the pod, and like I said, last week we had our NBA. I did I think a breakout for the NBA and stuff like that. Like I said, that's still going on. We are in the thick of the NFL, so we're strictly still gonna be talking NFL. College basketball just start, which I'm looking at right now. Duke and Kentucky are playing.
Go Hoosiers, baby! Go!
Hoosiers. I forgot about that. Yeah, hey, gotta give a shout out to the Hoosiers, man. I think you guys. I didn't even see where you guys were ranked in the playoff. They just came out with it.
Number 5.
Or 5. So I saw it in the background, but I was kind of monitoring it. But
I think so.
I think behind Penn State. They might be behind Penn State. Penn State's 4. I know for sure.
Let's see.
They might be behind Penn State.
4 Big Ten teams in Texas.
Yeah. Do you guys play Ohio State this week?
No, we have a bye week and
week.
Then Ohio State.
The bye week before that is
a bye week. Oh gosh!
Wow.
Yeah, number 2 versus number 5 at Columbus.
Yeah, that is a shout out to the Hooters, man. That you want to talk about a cute story? Like it's become like a real story now.
Yeah,
it was a cute story when they were like 7-0, and now it's like a real story to where like if they somehow fight with Ohio State, win it or keep it close, like there's a real chance that they go to the playoff for sure. Because they only have one loss and then do whatever.
The win in the big house, no matter how mediocre they are, that's still a big win.
Yeah, it is a massive win. So shout out to the Hoosiers, man. Like you said, it's college football with the NIL and all these different types of players transferring because they want to play. If you got a coach that can coach, you have a chance to get to the playoff with it being 12 teams this year. So shout out to the playoffs and creating that type of atmosphere for people who are, I guess you could say, Indiana's traditionally a basketball school. Now they're having the football program being relevant. It's just good for all parties involved. So make sure you guys are tuned into our college football, I guess, coverage when we get to the playoffs. Make sure you're tuned into our NBA coverage as well. Like I said, it's still early in the season. NFL's in the thick of the playoff chase. Quantro knows for YouTube. Tyson Talks _ for Instagram, for TikTok. Make sure you follow us on Apple, Spotify. We are posting every week on there for our podcast. And for me, Zoo, and P. Bush, we are out.